You want to go ahead and get started? I guess without Amy, does anybody want to be on this bad boy for the committee tonight? Without Amy? Anybody?
I mean, I
can
guess.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just reading this, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Call the order first, and then we'll get rolling.
Okay. I need a time.
It is 6:05.
6:05. So we'll call this order, this meeting to order. The Deutschen Pfest Committee final wrap up at 6:05 p.m. First on the agenda is citizen communication. The committee welcomes comment on items related to Deutschen Pfest. Public comment that is made on an item that is not on the published agenda will only be heard by the committee. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address for the public record. And I don't believe we have anyone. So number 3, approval of the minutes. So we need to discuss and consider action to approve the minutes from the Deutschen Pfest Steering Committee meeting on October 17th, 2023. Anybody have any?
Yeah, did everybody receive the minutes?
Yes. I just don't know if I want to include the comment Ms. Call asks what a trackless train is.
I'm sorry. That was a conversation that happened.
I'm just
I gotta
kidding.
put it down.
I'm just kidding. Like, oh, that's a foolish thing, wasn't it? I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I second.
Okay, second. So without any further discussion, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. So item number 4, discussion regarding the Deutschen Pfest event wrap-up.
So I'll take the first part of this one. We have some figures for y'all that we got all wrapped up before we get into our just kind of general after action and debrief as we go around for this one. So first off, attendance, we had 5,475 tickets sold, and that's then we had 6,500 attendees. Based on some of our analytics, the average dwell time, which is the time how long somebody spends at the event in the park essentially, was 163 minutes. So over 2 hours, almost 3 in that range. And then this year we collected $84,521.32 in revenue from ticketing. So volunteers, we at the time of the event and then through and after, we had 59 total citizen volunteers, and that accounted to 310.25 hours volunteered. And then the value of that hours, if you were to kind of count that over with like a standard pay, would be approximately $9,865.95 from volunteer hours. So that's amazing. Always couldn't have done it without all the help of our, of course, citizen volunteers and everybody in the community. Vendors, we had 57 vendors. 80% of those were first-time Deutschen Pfest vendors this year. And then the fees that they pay to apply, so fees collected through vendor fees, was $23,231. Moving on to the fun run for Sunday, we had a total of 196 runners. Their fees collected ended up being $4,883.75. And then based on the survey results from the fun run, 82% rated it as above average or higher in their satisfaction for the fun run. And then some numbers on shirts. We ended up selling 910 shirts, resulting in an additional $17,666 in revenue. So there's just a brief look at kind of the numbers overview and a couple different sections of the event, the fun run and vendors and all that kind of good stuff that we have. So I guess for kind of after action stuff, if y'all would rather go just around the room, since we all kind of have a different section of the event, and we'll cover everybody's kind of section first, then of course those that aren't here or anything else obviously is totally open floor, so we can discuss those items as well.
Can we ask questions about that?
Yeah.
So, like the 910 shirts that were sold, so can we kind of assume that was 910 of the 1,025 attendees above the ones who bought the ticket?
So some of those, yeah, most of those people are probably going to be
The ones who got in free?
hmm It could be, and some of that, and we could probably break that down a little farther. I imagine just based on when we could pull the numbers, some of those might be ticket sales at the gate. Because some of those too, that's also includes like not just the quote regular Deutschen Pfest shirt and the special edition shirt. So it's also possible that you could have had bought both, or so there's some different combos that could have happened there with how those numbers worked out in the end.
And also you have kids, right, to get in free that don't necessarily need a shirt. Some
Right.
kids buy it
So
anyways.
is that the attendees are adults and children?
Yeah, so the attendees, how that's tracked, we track that through a analytics platform called Placer AI. So what that does is that tracks like your like phone analytics. So in that respect too, you're maybe not getting all the kiddos because it obviously doesn't track that. So it gives us a rough estimate of how many people were in attendance at any given time. So it at least gives us a good comparison to like years past and different events and that kind of thing.
So maybe 100 to 150 maybe were either city staff or people dressed in German gear.
Yeah,
Approximately.
it's possible. Yeah, I would imagine. And with the dwell time, I'm sure there's also a very, granted in the grand scheme of things, percentage-wise, we're a very small part of that group. But obviously, yeah, statistically,
I'm
some
just kind of wondering the
impact it
breakdown
does
of
apply.
those things.
How are you able to track ticket sales at the gates?
At what?
How do you track the ticket sales at the gates?
So we have we use for the platform we use it for that is Eventbrite. So all the like sales we have like they're basically just phones, but they're all connected to the Eventbrite system.
Okay.
So like the website, the actual Deutschen Pfest website where you can buy your tickets and shirts, that's also Eventbrite. So that's how we can pull like the ticket sale numbers because it all goes through Eventbrite. So we can run all those afterwards. So that's how that's all tracked. And same thing with the revenue. So like all revenue collected, whether it's tickets, shirts sold, vendors is a different platform, but specifically attendance, shirts, all that's through Eventbrite as well. So the vendor side goes through our kind of event software. It's a little different, but yeah, that's how all those are tracked.
And do y'all also track the amount of festival pay that was given to the city workers? Is that also part of?
I believe, yeah, that's also a metric that we tracked, which we should have all after the last pay period. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but yeah, something we can track for sure. Any other questions about the general recap numbers? No? Cool. All right. Well, to get our other after action stuff,
Actually, I do
no,
have.
go ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I do have a question about the volunteers, so I want to make sure I'm understanding the monetary value that you attach that is not something you guys actually pay.
No.
So
No,
so
it's
that
just like an
doesn't go
estimated
into
value.
Your cost.
No, yeah, it's not something we actually pay.
Right.
It's just to kind of help give a
If we were having the staff.
yeah, to kind of give like a I'm losing my word here, but
Impact.
a figure to it, yeah,
Yeah,
an
it's
impact of what it
yeah.
would be like. That's how much the value of all that volunteering hours is worth.
So
So
next year, if we want to ask for a raise, we'd start with that.
yeah, right,
Got it, okay.
right. Because 310 hours, like that's kind of hard to it's harder to quantify or to to
Yeah,
realize. But I
yeah.
think it's just another way to look at it. So,
Okay.
yeah. But it's just a approximation kind of helping figure. All right. Does anybody want to get us started off with their kind of section of the festival, and just as a good jumping off point, and then like I said, we'll kind of go around from there, and then I think anything else that we want to pick up, we'll absolutely touch on.
I think volunteers were great. The check-in, all that. It got a little hairy a little bit when we're missing people because of check-in times and all that, right? There was just like on the vendor lot, I think there was.
The parking, that was
Yeah,
probably
there
the
was.
worst thing.
I think they just
vendor lot.
needed a little bit. Like we gave them the materials, but they didn't ask any questions, and they got over there, and then they were just like letting everybody in.
Yeah,
Like people
they-
were just giving like
they-
city or like some type of credential, and they were like, "All right, come in," and we're like,
I think
hey,
they didn't, it's probably just mainly the fact they weren't told what to be looking for.
No,
You
but
know,
we
that
did. We're like
blue-
when they checked in and everything, we told them, "Hey, here's the parking pass, all that stuff."
Oh, they
and I
knew
think
what
maybe
it looked like.
I think
Oh,
like
okay.
the guys that were over there, it was their first Deutschen Pfest too, so there was definitely a learning curve too. But once
Maybe-
they figured out that hey, this is the parking pass, okay, it was good. It was just the lot filled up,
Or
so
they
then we had to
didn't-
wait for people to leave to then allow more people to come in.
Yeah, they may not have felt like they had the authority to turn people away because, you know, some people can be pretty insistent. It's like, oh, well, I am vendor, you know, I don't have a parking pass, but, you know, my associate's already at the booth and they have a parking pass. So, you know
Yeah.
how it goes.
But I think that might be a learning
Yeah.
experience for next time because you have to have a certain type of assertiveness
Yeah,
to be at that
yeah.
place, right? Is
Yeah.
that hey, I need this or I can't, you know? It's just matter of fact, right?
Yeah.
And I think they were concerned. I think there was some city people that were parking on a street too that he was like, hey, well, you can't park there, and you know they were talking back and stuff, and they kind of like left it alone. I think they were worried about pushing too hard.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
when I pulled into City Park Road, there were two stop gates before you actually get into the tiny parking lot, because I know I had a spot there, because, you know, that's where I was supposed to park. First guys stopped me. I had the entertainment parking pass, and I pulled it out so they'd see I'm entertainment. And I'm not sure who they talked to. Gabby, they went back and forth. They let me through, then the gate stopped, and then the next guys came out and did the exact same thing. I literally opened the box and said, I have all the paychecks for the musicians in this box. Okay. I didn't know what else to say. I mean, I had an entertainment. I didn't know what else to tell them. Get Shane, get Gabby, get Jonathan, get Bays, you know. And I mean, and I commended them. I said, you're doing exactly what you were told, but perhaps something needs different to be told.
Maybe
And
a
so
little
the
bit more
bands,
detail.
it would have helped too if the bands, I don't know on the parking passes for the bands, but if you have, like mine has the word entertainment across the top. And it's fading, I've had it for so long, but it would be nice if the bands would get, you know, those types of parking passes. But I didn't know, the front guys, I felt like they were very new.
yeah, I think
So maybe older, a little bit more assertive in those
Well,
areas.
What's your,
I think the other thing, and this is feedback for me too, like me and Eddie, is I would have gone to each post to get them set up, right? We kind of let them like hey, you have any questions, anything like that? No.
Yeah.
Okay, we let them go, and then they kind of weren't
they
exactly
didn't know
sure.
what questions to ask.
Right,
until they-
exactly.
yeah.
So I think that's
a learning
feedback.
lesson,
Yeah, for us in the sense of, hey, let's make sure that we say, hey, here's what gets you in. This is not what gets you in, right?
And what gets you in, but also, we probably have a relatively short list of who's actually parking in the tiny lot. And so,
That was my other. I was going to
short
talk
list.
about that too.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I think like talking about parking passes. I think that the Deutschen or the Pflugerville Park lot. You know, there, like for instance, when Austin Public Health showed up, right? Like I understand those are going to be scenarios where they just have to get in, they have to do an audit, but there were some people that needed to get in that lot and they didn't have anything to get them in that lot. I think one of your
You're talking
acts,
about,
right?
you're talking about at the Gilliland side?
No,
Gilliland Creek side, or the tiny, the city park?
That front.
the one in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Pfluger.
I don't know if I know I had problems over there, because
Yeah.
especially the people that were coming in with 20,000 kids that were all little dancers and stuff like that, you know, I was like, no, you can't park back here, but you should be able to. They finally ended up, the problem for me was having the entire Gilliland Park, parking spot ADA. The whole thing was ADA. And so I couldn't tell my not martial arts, but dancers and stuff, you just park over there, drop your kids off, then go back. You know, if their kids are gonna dance for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have them park somewhere over there, so.
Well, I think Flame was trying to get in the front side too, because they were at the gazebo, right? I
Yes,
think they were at the gazebo, and we ended up getting them in through the cul-de-sac, right?
I will handle Flame.
Okay. All right.
But it's funny that you said that now, because I think it was, I don't know if it was Clark or somebody was from Flame. We were standing at the front entrance, you know, where the volunteers gather, And he'd said, we got stopped. And I said, I understand that. We'll get you back through the other road. And we looked over there, and some car had been let through. Some tiny little car, little red SUV.
I think that was Austin Public Health.
And no, he was
No?
one of their. I think he was with their guitar player.
Oh, I gotcha.
And
Okay.
he may have been disabled. He may have had a disabled sticker, and I'm not sure. But whatever he said, that's what I'm saying next. They got in. So yeah, I think the newness of the volunteers, and that's a learning curve.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe for the bands, if I've got anybody that needs ADA parking, I can say, okay, there were supposed to be, that's the other thing, there were supposed to be 3 spots. I don't know if this is my turn now, but I don't know if this is volunteers.
Go ahead.
But there were
You're good.
supposed to be,
Just since we segued into it.
Yeah.
there were supposed to be 3 spots in that for the band, in the tiny, and trucks parked this way, that way. I parked as far as away as I could. That's not a problem for me, but it just got obliterated. That's why we had to have Flame go around to that other side. Because in the past, we've always had 3 spots open for bands that are playing at the gazebo, not main stage or even pavilion, but only at the gazebo.
That makes sense though, because it's right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, load in, load out. They got a lot of equipment, so.
Yeah, that was, that was on my list too, maybe like, signs that state band parking
Only.
only, so those spots don't get snaked.
That could,
Well,
could
we'd need
that be, since like with the bands, who's in the band, so could that be something where you have that checklist and you check IDs or something?
What, me?
Well,
Or,
I mean, whoever's monitoring that parking lot, I mean, is that a way that we could make that better? or
Well,
no?
that's what I was saying to him, is that if you have a list of who's supposed to be able to park there, yeah.
Yeah, with vendors, I think it's harder,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
with
not-
the
not with
band,
vendors, but band.
'cause
No,
The
that's-
the hardest parts with the band is you get not an actual, say there's 4 members in the band. You get the other people that come with, I'm with the band.
Yeah.
Well, you are, but
Well-
not as far as parking is concerned, right? So
They,
that's where it gets a little
they
tricky.
know, they're not supposed to do that, and they don't. I mean, the bands that are in the pavilion and the gazebo are pretty much local home bands.
Yeah,
Some of the
I mean,
main
I
stage
know
might
they
pull
have
that,
some main stage.
but the home bands, I haven't really had that. I'm very clear in my emails and my phone calls and my text messages. This is how many band members you have. This is not your wife, your child, your aunt, and your grandmother coming in. It's just not gonna happen. And that's minimal,
Yeah, I think we had some problems with that main stage side at least.
Main stage, it was multiple cars, they didn't, all the artists didn't come in one car, they had multiple cars
Yeah.
that they came in. And it could,
They were all driving their own.
They were all driving
Yeah.
their own car with their own equipment,
yeah.
and then you've got like 3 or 4 cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is bad behind main stage sometimes, but
Meet up at the football stadium, put all the equipment in one car and come on down.
Some of the bigger
It's-
bands have a lot of equipment.
Well, and then
Oh, yeah,
they'd
they
have
had
trailers,
trailers.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
They had trailers, yeah.
And that's something to consider if, redesigning. I mean, we already know we've redesigned the stage as far as placement goes and redesigning the parking for the main stage. Because I promise you, that's gonna be it's such a tight niche. They leave and go, well, we couldn't find any parking. I would play there again if I were y'all, because it was a mess, we ended up. But if they come back and says, man, they've got devoted parking, they got this cool green room and blah, 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 and it's just really nice, they'll come back.
So,
And that's what you track.
was Gilliland, was that parking, was it truly full of ADA?
I don't know.
Was the parking lot full?
I don't know.
Cause maybe that's
I
a
didn't
solution.
monitor
I mean,
that.
if we're, it's not a
It
huge parking
it
lot,
surprised me
but-
that the entire, that's what I was told, that the entire, is that correct? Does anybody know?
Yeah, that's what it
It
was
was,
for the event.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I don't know if it was packed or not, but that's,
I mean,
from my
Anecdotally,
knowledge,
was
that's the
anybody-
first year.
anecdotally, when I was driving by it, it wasn't anywhere near.
Yeah, that's the
So,
first year that I've known that to be
Yeah,
completely.
I never got over there like late in the evening, kind of the busiest part of the day
Yeah, you're right.
to check it. But obviously, most of the time when I was over there, it was in the morning, so it's not
Yeah.
really gonna be. But
All
But
right,
there's
so let me
kind
go
of a-
through some of my,
Go ahead.
notes. Just, this is my professional notepad here. No vendors means no audience. And so, coming down the little path, there were just no vendors, and people literally, if people were coming by this way, they were going to the parking lot to go home, or they're coming into the park to go on. That comment was made to me by several bands. They didn't specifically say, hey, there's no
Me
vendors,
too.
but they were just like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I know you. But they were, how come there's no vendors down here? And that was a problem. So another issue that's pretty major is sound. And so the sound between the gazebo and the pavilion is combative. And I continually had to tell the gazebo band, turn your speakers away from your bench audience, which is what they loathe doing, because as soon as it was turned there, it just hit back and forth, back and forth. And I'm considering maybe next year in the pavilion only have the children's dance groups and highly advertise that as this is the best place because it's already free. We know that it's a free entrance. We pay them $100 a shot, that type of thing. But the bands that perform over there are incredible bands. They're not getting any audience participation, no applause, no attendance, et cetera, et cetera. And so that becomes more of a grump and a gripe kind of thing. They're not going to say, hey, we won't pay. We won't play because we pay. But that's just something I don't want to have that type of reputation of, if she asks you to sing in the pavilion, say no. So the possibility, that means that reduces the number of bands that we would have. We used to have them on Sunday, and so that day was available to us. We don't have that. But, but the lack of vendors coming down there just literally meant there was no compelling reason unless you were a roadie and you were coming down that way.
To that, I was thinking, what if we didn't do anything in the pavilion anymore? What if instead of doing the pavilion, we set up a dance floor in front of the stage, the main stage like we used to, and while the main stage bands are loading in, we can have what would have been playing in the pavilion.
So, and that's what we used to do. We had, we didn't have the beer stein and the pretzel, that type of thing, and so we had literally, the clickety-cloggers, but also the children's groups dancing, and that's when you literally had a dance floor. I don't know where the dance floor went last year. We had, I panicked when clickety-cloggers comes out there, and we used to have these big plastic rubberized things that went on the ground, and that became the dance floor.
We had it last year.
So
Yeah.
it's somewhere. They're separate pieces, snapped together like a Lego puzzle, I guess. And that would have been very helpful. I hear what you're saying about not having anything on the pavilion. However, we won't be able to fill up the front of the stage. I could fill up pavilion every 15 minutes having groups up there and make $1,000, $100 a pop. But I couldn't do that in front of the stage.
I think
Plus,
if you're going to have
the parents that are going to bring their kids to dance for 15 minutes, it's unlikely they're going to want, if they're not going to Deutschen Pfest, they're not going to want to have to pay to get in.
Well, that
But
was
we could-
another thing I was gonna say. What if we don't charge
Is
Don't
what?
charge for
I'm sorry.
what?
for anything?
At
Well-
the entire event?
Yes.
Are you talking about parents of dancers?
No, I'm saying, what if we don't charge at the gate? What if,
So that attendance right there, the 84,000,
well, I understand.
is that what you're, is that
No,
what you're?
I'm saying, so I guess there's 2 points to that. So the gates, trying to control all of the people and all the different points, that was a point of contention, because we had people coming in from all different directions. We didn't have enough vendors this year, which I'm sure it'll be different.
We had enough.
That didn't go all the way down to the pavilion. So what if we don't charge for
For the booth fees?
anything? Well, we still have the vendors. We have
Or
their,
don't charge the vendors? you
no,
mean?
charge the vendors. We still
Oh.
have the vendors being charged.
charge
We
the
still charge for
attendees.
shirts. The attendance is what we don't charge for. And with that, put carnival rides on the other side of the creek, close all that off,
Well,
and
let me-
charge for that.
I think the problem with doing it on the other side of the creek is access. Are you talking about Gilliland side, or are you talking about the other side of Fluker Park?
The west side.
Yeah,
By the pavilion.
like.
No, I think
No,
Grassy area
that's the
past
east,
Yeah,
that's
the
the
grassy
east,
area.
that's
yeah.
the east side. She's talking about the west
Right.
side of the.
yeah. When you go down
Yes.
past the creek on that,
On
I
the
think
park
it's
view side.
yeah.
That side.
I think the problem is access, right? Like it's hard
Yeah,
to get
then you're
people.
right behind people's homes.
Yeah, so-
Yeah. So
Which I know we kind of are with the stage anyway, but. on
I
that side.
can't, I
On
don't
the
see
other
how
side
we're
of the
gonna get
creek.
around not
Yeah, that's just a
paying to get
So-
in the door.
Colossal
'Cause of
loss
that.
of revenue.
Yeah, 84,000, that means we can't pay the
Some-
bands.
I don't want to dismiss your point though. Like, and let me just make sure I'm wrapping my head around it. So we would do away with attendance fees. This is just blue sky
Yep.
talk, right? But we would get rid of attendance, which would eliminate like the issue about like parking and all that stuff. Is that where you're getting at?
Wristbands.
Wristbands, all that stuff,
all
right?
that.
Okay. And then have a separate area with like a carnival, right?
Yes.
And then we charge.
Right.
I think my concern is that revenue is probably mostly going to whatever carnival vendor is going, and then none of that revenue goes to like the actual Deutschen Fest.
There
Well,
was
and the
just
percentage of people that attend the carnival versus the whole event is,
comments made that other festivals like Hog's Eye, that was just in Elgin, they don't charge for you to walk through and see the vendors and eat the food and to drink the beer. They don't charge for that, any of that. That what they charge for is for the rides and for
The actual
all
activities.
the stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends on what we want to be, because that's one of the points I was gonna make. And I don't know, I can make it in a minute, because I don't know if you're through your list yet. So, because we're kind of going off your list.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish your list? Because I would like to adjust
yeah,
that further.
yeah, let me finish that list.
But that's interesting. I didn't know about that festival that didn't charge an attendance to walk through. So
Yeah.
But when you word it that way, it makes more sense, because they're walking through and then having to pay again for whatever food and beer.
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of perhaps buying a $10 wristband that gets you all the beer and the food you want, which that means the individual vendors are not gonna make money, so, you know,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be the answer. Okay, back to my comment that I've made for the past 3 years is check the power in the pavilion and the gazebo prior to the concert, because we literally, I think it was Alicia Dalton, it just stopped. I was standing at the gazebo and I went, uh-oh, and it,
So fun
Powers.
fact, we ran the generator for 5 or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and it ran fine. But at 11 minutes, it started having heat problems, and so it was literally like a malfunctioning piece of equipment after like 15 minutes. That's what happened. Then it got hot, and so
Well, and
they
you did-
brought us another one from Coda
yeah,
on Saturday morning. But
Yeah, I
that's what
remember
happened on Friday. Yeah.
okay.
We
So-
did run it. It
Well,
just-
you ran it,
worked
but
the
you
time we
don't have a
ran it.
bunch of band equipment attached to it when you run it.
Well, it wasn't even that, and then after that, it would shut down with no load. So
Okay.
it was literally just
faulty.
Mal-
we ran it,
Malfunctioning.
started it, let it run for a while, ran great. We're like, cool, and then of course. that's
Yeah,
what
so-
happens,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
We did. We
Um,
just caught a bad apple there.
We're gonna try again next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I felt like a lot of this, I had some people come up to me and make some very pointed comments, and I wish Raul was here, because he was my point man. He literally blocked me from this woman. I don't know if she's gonna throw a beer in my face or something, but she came up to me and she was very upset that it wasn't the carnival ride. She was saying, my son doesn't have anything to do with the video gamings and, those interactive games, and the bands are blah, 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 blah. And I looked at her and I almost said, did you mean your grandson? Because she was close to my age. And she says, I didn't say that, and Raul was, he stepped forward. He could tell she was a little aggressive. So she points to her son and motions him, and he was about 27 and was upset that he didn't, So I didn't know what to do with that. So then I had a couple from my church, very well-known couple from my church, pointing their finger and saying, it's just not as good as it used to be, and blah, 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 blah. So what the public didn't know, that in effect, we were like the Wizard of Oz, okay? A lot of people didn't know what was going on behind the scenes 30 days prior to, and they didn't know any of that. So with that in mind, I took all of that in consideration and said, we did a darn good job based on what was going on. So I didn't, concern myself. Joe Powell, the fella at the front, the DJ, I asked him to turn down his volume because it was so loud. I walked over to the gazebo and I thought, that's all I'm hearing. In fact, somebody said, oh, there's a band that's going to play. What was coming out of his speakers? I said, no, that's his speakers. He was a gem. He was a gem. He was very, I told him that the checks were in my car, and he's a prior, law enforcement, so he said, I gotcha. So that was just a little bit, yeah, the conflicting sound from the pavilion. The only thing I can think about doing is eliminating bands from the pavilion, which that brings down our expenditures going out the door. I don't think, this is just my opinion, that most attendees are going for the bands that are in the pavilion and the gazebos. I just don't think they are, because like I said, no vendors down there. There's just no compelling reason unless you've been going, you've got 50 million hits on YouTube and they're sitting right there. So I think some redesign. I still need a link to the volunteer sign up. And never got sent.
Gotcha.
I'm still waiting on that. In years past, our committee contact list has included people's cell phones, not just their emails, because I really would have liked to have been able to call if I needed to. The volunteers rocked.
Yeah.
Rocked. They jumped whenever we needed help. Green room worked out just fine. Derek, did great. Didn't have any problems with the bands. In fact, several of them, I think they've probably done the same to you. We've got Facebook friends that we didn't have before, and
They were great.
I didn't hear any complaints from the
They were all
main
very
stage.
professional, very,
Very
very
professional.
nice.
Yeah, city announcements, this is a suggestion I made, and you guys may have chose not to do it, is make some city announcements throughout the day from the main stage. That's really effective. I know you guys have an event coming up, and to let the public know, when bands are loading, unloading, you're waiting for the pretzel things to start and all that, that's really impactful to let people know, here's what's going on. Miss Yuta, who lives right behind the stage, she was a sweetheart. I saw her on Sunday, and I leaned down and said, did you survive? And she said, yes, I want to wear a shirt that says, I survived Deutschen Pfest. And she deliberately left her, to hear with.
Hearing aids.
Hearing aids.
Thank you. She deliberately left them out, so
Oh,
I talked.
she didn't hear.
Oh my
I talked to
gosh.
her son-in-law and her,
That's
her
Mark.
daughter. Yeah,
Krista. Yeah, they go to church with
during
us too.
trick or treating, and I asked him if he had taken any decibel readings.
Yeah, I was looking
He said,
for him.
I think I did. He's like, let me see if I can get him to you. He's like, it wasn't bad.
Good.
He mentioned on his own accord he didn't think it was as bad. So
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad, because you could tell the moment you walked behind the stage, it was noticeably
Right.
quieter.
It's just the bass
Right.
that carries. It's an
Yeah.
omnidirectional bass really
Yeah,
carries.
so it was
but
cool.
most of it, you could hold the conversation, but I get obviously with your house there, it's still.
Yeah, because we were back there at the tables talking in regular voices.
I
Like
couldn't
yelling everything.
imagine. It was
Music.
crazy walking from the front of the stage and being so loud, and then walking around
Yeah,
to the
that's
back
what's
of
nice
the
about our
stage.
stage with the
It
wings
was
and the
so
hard
good.
shell all the way in the back. It does a decent job of
It did a
cutting
good
a lot
job.
of that out.
It did a really good
Well, the
job.
fellow that manages the Peterson brothers, he and I are in connection, because I'm going to hire them for an event that I've got going on. They were just rocking. It was just all the bands were
Fantastic,
were great. So that's it for me.
So,
You got anything
Oh, I
main
don't-
stage?
I have loads.
Yeah, Kelly, you want
Oh,
to, while we're on the
yeah,
topic
yeah,
of
yeah,
entertainment,
yeah,
Yes, the only complaint that I would have about the bands was they were too professional. They showed up early. So the idea of having, they were too professional.
We've never had that complaint. Awesome.
They were there like early, and they were ready to go, and the only like a holding, like somewhere that we could put them.
Did they go to the green room and chill?
They did, but I just, we had cars, like 3 cars parked up alongside the main stage, and then it was like running around in the little parking area that we had to try and find more parking for.
So like an easier
The
transition.
bands
than
could come,
band
yeah.
coming in, load in.
I mean, we
bands
made
leaving,
it
load
work, yeah, but I mean, extra, like 3 extra parking spaces at least.
Yeah.
There where we were kind of,
Yeah, parking sounds like.
it
the
worked great,
biggest
I mean,
thing.
but just like a holding area where we
'Cause
could
Do you
stay.
think they come early because they want to enjoy the festival a little bit before they
do.
play? So we need to
Some-
consider that
sometimes.
next year.
I do,
Yeah.
I do. They did walk through the festival and check things out, and they
Yeah.
all had nice things to say. They're,
Yeah.
you know, they didn't know it happened, you know, Deutschen Pfest, and I'm like, it's been 47 years.
There was one
that-
guy, the lead singer with the cool hat. He saw me in the park an hour later and said, "Melissa, come here." And I went, "How do you know my name?" You know, but he remembered. They were really good people.
They were very nice.
I
So
think
are your
I think
extra attendees came from?
I think what would help too is
Oh, maybe.
really
Hanging out at the festival.
detailed emails, because that's what I used to do with main bands, is really super detailed, do exactly this, don't do that, do this. And it goes to the band manager. And, you know, we didn't get that opportunity, you didn't get that opportunity to really connect. And so I think next year I'll connect with the main stage bands a little bit more aggressively and make sure they know, but
And parking,
Oh, yeah.
and parking
Yeah.
passes.
And
for
I
the
know
bands.
Saturday, kind of like we already talked about, a lot of the vendors got into park access, not just the vendor parking, and that didn't help our didn't help our cause on Saturday because the inside park access was almost full from the get-go,
yeah.
which is a problem we didn't really have on Friday.
That's what I was saying,
So-
is like, where's my 3 spots? Because these guys are parked, you know, this way,
Yeah,
so
a lot
that
of the
way, I'm
vendors
like,
got in park access before we could, because since they're already set up and we started at 10, you know, that some of them probably got there 7:30, even almost
Right.
before
Because
we
they
did,
probably
so.
know, so they
They
Yeah.
got
do
the lay
that.
of the land, so,
But
yeah.
that's kind of an issue, definitely a challenge we're going into Saturday, more so than Friday, I
Yeah.
feel like. But
I mean, it all worked out,
Yeah.
but it got a little hairy there a couple times.
yeah.
Maybe lanyards with our name tags on them, like the committee and maybe Parks and Recs people, because, you know, it just makes it a little easier and
Names.
then, yeah,
Yeah.
easier to remember names and also like, here's my lanyard, you know, I park over here. Oh, okay, you've got a lanyard.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The lanyards that
We
weren't.
used to have lanyards long time ago.
Maybe let entertainment proof the schedule before it goes out. There was a couple of mistakes on the schedule that were published.
Yep. But
Me
when I,
and
when,
my-
I- when I
Schedule, you mean like the poster schedule or like the online?
Yeah,
Like basketball, like
Yeah.
what was on the main,
yeah,
excuse me, what was on the website as in their specific
Right.
location.
yeah,
yeah, the
Yeah.
American Gypsy,
yeah.
yeah.
Because, you know, you guys might not know that we're talking to the bands going, okay, I get it, let's go ahead and switch you. And that's what happened with Mario Frog. I had to switch them. So I'm sitting at the signage that you guys have already put, and I'm with the marks a lot going, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. So,
Me and my porta potty
Sorry.
thing.
that sounds like a song. Me and my porta potty.
I just, maybe a couple more porta potties and some better lighting.
Oh, yeah, the lighting.
Designated bands,
You probably needed one in the green room, like in the green room. Was there one back? There wasn't one back
wait,
there, right?
no, we had like a porta potty.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been
Not
great.
right
It would
at
have been
the
really
stage,
nice.
no.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so
Yeah.
nice.
Because I think
back
the
there.
closest one was like on the
Park access.
And they
yeah,
didn't-
like
Yeah.
on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah,
We should
and
do
they
that.
wanted,
Yeah.
they didn't want to go to that. They wanted to go all the way to the nicer one.
Right.
So
Hey, but at
I'm
least they
trying
have
to
a choice,
drive a
right?
golf
Yeah.
cart through the crowds
Yeah.
for the safety of
Well,
all
and
people
have
in the
one
park. It would be a
dedicated
good
for
idea.
band
That
only.
would be
Yeah.
I do like
awesome.
that.
That would be
Yeah, that's
awesome. That would be a
Yeah.
great idea. Maybe a schedule of the bands somewhere posted in the park so people can see when the bands are playing and where.
Well,
So
Like
more
maybe at the-
signage, so we did
we
have
had
Yeah,
that.
more signage.
And there
Everybody
was
just said I
one,
rewrote
we did
one.
have
Oh, that's
multiples
right.
that were
There was
made
a-
as well,
The tent.
Yeah.
but I don't think they
Yeah,
do
we
it
need
now. We
signage.
did make more.
The,
But I don't
the
think they
band
made it out.
schedule signage needs to be at all the entrances.
Yeah.
Right,
And,
yeah.
Maybe
it
at the beer
doesn't need
tents.
to be in front of the stage. That was the
That's a good
thing.
idea.
We put the signage in front of the stage, but it doesn't do anything in front of the stage.
No, but you can still tell
Because-
who's playing, because me as just an average person, if I didn't know,
Yeah, but
You
at
let
least you
it
can know
up.
who
if
they
we-
are.
if
Like, who's
we-
playing right now, and you can still.
if we have enough signs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we can. We
But
can
most
definitely
of
do
the
that.
bands have some kind of signage that define, that says who they are. Like either on their drum kit or,
Nah, they didn't, no, we've gotta have signage on the stage.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to.
Yeah.
But not at the sacrifice of having signage at more visible.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think,
we can always,
yeah,
we can
yeah.
definitely do more signage.
I think
the
that's
easy-
cost
that's the easy
wise.
thing.
Because
It's
I
not a- it's
moved,
not a
I
trade-off. We
moved
can
those
just do
signs
more.
because it was the only, I moved those signs in front of the gazebo and the pavilion, only because there was nothing else to direct people back there. I moved it to the front of the sidewalk so people could see, hey, there's bands down here.
So
So,
Yeah,
you
we
were the
can
one
definitely
that
do
did
more.
that.
That's
yes,
the easy
I
fix.
was the one who did that. I will claim that.
Okay.
Yeah, and just dance floor for the main stage.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot
Where
of people,
is that
a lot of
dance
people ask about that.
yeah.
Cause that, I love the band, so I was out there talking to people, and everybody was asking about the dance. Like, where's the
It
dance
was,
floor?
it
I
was
was
blue
surprised.
from what I remember. Was it
Uh-huh.
blue?
Nobody fell.
It was blue.
It-
it was-
I thought
it
it was
was-
yellow, but that's okay. I don't.
Is either blue or green? And it
But
was
it
like
was
a
something,
rubberized kind of snapped together whole thing. I mean, it's not like
Yeah,
it's gonna
I've never
be.
seen it, so I don't know either.
It was
I don't
definitely
remember it
there
from
last
last year
year.
either.
I mean, they definitely had it last year.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
I know we
I
probably
don't
have
know.
one, I believe y'all.
Well,
Yeah,
we'll just
I
put that
definitely
in the
do
budget
too.
for
I
next
have
year.
never- I
The
haven't seen
stage
it.
in the budget for next year?
Yeah.
Or not the
The
stage, the
dance
dance
floor.
floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, mobile dance floor.
Well, and it could be a stage too. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
yes, it's yeah.
Could function as, but
Call it
Right.
whatever. A multifunctional flooring. Does that sound better?
yes.
Okay.
That sounds good. Other than, the feedback that I got was, everybody liked the vendors, wanted more shopping.
I got that too. Not so much of like I don't know what it was, insurance or where there wasn't an actual product that you could buy right
yeah, there
there.
wasn't any. We turned down all of those.
People asked for that?
No.
No, they don't.
Oh.
They were
All
glad
of
not to
those
have it.
applications were rejected. There was no one like that unless they were a sponsor.
That's one, sorry.
You said people were asking for that?
No, they
I-
don't
I-
like
I
it.
heard that.
They don't
Oh,
like it.
no,
That they wanted to be
I
able to
heard the
buy-
opposite.
They wanted to buy insurance
Thank
at the.
goodness,
at the-
yeah.
No.
Nobody was
Oh.
asking me
One-stop
to
shop.
buy something.
No,
The
no.
opposite
All right.
They
Start
wanted
over.
to buy something
stuff.
tangible.
A tangible product?
that they could put on their kitchen shelf.
Yeah,
Oh.
they didn't want.
I mean, all of them should have been, except unless they were sponsors or the few city booths we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
Sponsors
that.
got a booth, but
Well,
everybody else should have had a sale.
If
like a
people
good
were
one.
approaching me to complain about something, I sort of went. And I continued to say, go to the city council meetings and speak. Go to the city over and over and over. I must have, that just have been repeat come out of my
And we
mind.
need to advertise these meetings more too, so people can come online even,
Yeah, the public comment.
And
but they don't. So
If you don't speak
they have
up, you.
opinions, though. Tons of opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Which also I heard, the beer and the food was way too expensive. That was the other complaint.
so it
that I
sounds
heard.
like we're on vendors now.
Yeah, we've.
And I'm,
we've-
yes, that was it.
Yes, we've moved to
Yeah.
your side of the table.
So
Transition.
So I have so much because so as far as that goes, I agree. That's what I dislike sometimes about festivals too, is that the food trucks and stuff, the food is so expensive. However, they are doing this to make a profit, and
Right.
it's kind of normal. I mean, it's
Well,
what
and
you
food trucks are
expect, I
normally
think,
way
with
more
a-
expensive than going
a
to a
food
restaurant.
truck. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's something we could do anything about
No.
unless we could try to get more
Can you
food
state-
vendors that have more snacky kind of stuff that's
Yeah.
more affordable,
Yeah. Can you set a limit of, we accept food vendors as long as you can get a meal for under $10 or something like that? I
Or
don't know
we
if
could
that's-
we
Right.
could just
And you
we
have to
could
kinda
we
police
could
it.
Yeah.
ask the food vendors to have one or two under 10 items. We could make that a request. It's I don't know. They could probably
Because it's awfully hard to bring your family in, pay at the gate,
Yeah.
That was the,
Pay-
that
yep,
was
pay at the
the
gate
pay
with
at the
all your
gate
family
and then
members.
pay.
and then pay for food, pay for drink. It's not gonna happen with families.
I mean, so So, okay, so I have so much to address, but like, so I'll throw out a question and then I'll kind of go through my list and some of these things we talked about. Like, so my generic question that I hope we can talk about before the end of this is, I believe, like, in my opinion, I think that we all need to be on the same page as to what we want this to be. I kind of go back to your comment, like, do we want, I mean, is Deutschen Fest this little small town festival that everybody loves and we want to keep it affordable? Or, like, in my opinion, and I might be the only one who wants this, I tend to want to make things as big as possible. I want to charge admission. I want to make this festival so good and exciting that we're drawing from even further away. You know, think like the State Fair of Texas or something. I mean, even like Worst Fest or some of those festivals. I feel like that's what I want to aim for. But we all have to, like, for us on the committee and the city people who are running the event, I think we need to have a common understanding of what is this, what
What's
do we
the
want
goal?
this to be?
Yeah.
So that's maybe we can talk about that after everything
It's
else.
hard though,
but-
because that's like saying, I want to have a family reunion for everybody named Smith, but I have a 1,500 square foot house. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hear what you're
Right,
saying. It
but-
would be cool to have a
I mean,
fantastic,
there
huge.
is, yeah, there's a limit,
Yeah.
unless somewhere down the line, we totally move the festival. So I
Right.
get that, I
Yeah.
get that within our confines, we have a little bit of a limit, but, I mean, your comment about the carnival, could we make that work? That's like, if we're not being creative and thinking of new things and being brave enough to throw them out there, even if it's not something we've never done, then we're not going to come up. Maybe we come up with something creative. And like, as far as the vendors, well, I want to say, like, first, I think it was mostly very good. Like, I feel like everybody was enjoying themselves. The music was good. We had a good variety of vendors that we got. I wish we had more German vendors. That's one coming.
It's hard in
But it was like,
October.
I tried. It's
Yeah,
hard to get
October
German
is the
vendors
hard.
in October.
It's musicians the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it was mostly good. We did have enough vendors. No, doesn't mean we can't have more, and I want to have more vendors, but we had enough vendors. However, and I'm just gonna throw this out there because I never got a good explanation, and I don't want to bring up Caitlin, except for the fact that we had a very good plan. We had a very good plan. We planned to walk the park and do everything. We had a plan to put vendors, both retail and
Yeah.
food and beverage,
All
along
the
that
way down.
sidewalk
Yep.
to get people down to those bands.
Well,
and we
maybe I'm
should
not
have
saying
done
we
that.
needed more vendors, maybe just
We could have spread
stretched
them out. The
out,
vendors were really tight.
Yeah.
I walked around. I talked to all my vendors multiple times. I was circling that park most of the time I was there, and they didn't need to be squished in so tight. We left the poor lemonade person all by herself. There's nobody around her. We had vendors that we could have stretched down that sidewalk. We had food and drink vendors that we could have put down that sidewalk, and so we failed. in
Well,
that.
that's the
vendor
last
map
thing I
got
heard was that
changed
there was gonna
3
be-
times, and then I got completely left out of the final
Yep.
arrangement. Even though I'm the one that then people come back and complain to because I was the vendor person. So that's what I really want us to work on more in the, like, for next year. Because if you're gonna put somebody in charge of vendors, they ought to be in charge of vendors. I appreciate the city's support, but, and again, we had a last minute thing that happened and we just tried to do our best.
Well,
But
if we change, if the the modality of the pavilion simply becomes, this is your kids group, your Girl Scout group, because they don't require an audience. It's built in,
Right.
grandparents and all of that, so they don't require an audience. But, so you could take the vendors down to the gazebo and stop. You know, you wouldn't have to necessarily
Yeah.
go across the creek
Well,
or anything like that.
And they used to.
But you
They
remember?
used to go all
Yeah,
the
and we
way.
had a pony ride down there and
Yeah.
the, not the pet, I don't know if it's the
So
animal
that's
shelter,
like,
but
we
you had,
can
yeah,
make it bigger.
Yeah.
We have more room and we used to use more room.
yeah.
My reason that the pavilion might not be as good for bands as I thought is I didn't realize those, tables were
They're
bolted
permanently,
in.
yeah, you can't move them,
So
yeah.
I was picturing like a space for dancing and then chairs and stuff where people wanted to sit and watch
Yeah.
the band, and I didn't realize
Right,
that those tables couldn't be moved. So that's more my reason that it's tougher to have bands down there than I think we could get the audience, if we made,
as,
you know.
Miriam,
but-
I've been, every year I go through the same thing, we don't have much of an audience around the pavilion. I
Right,
mean,
but,
it was a
I
good
mean,
idea in the beginning, but
I'm
it's
just saying
not.
there's things we could do. Even, you know,
Have-
even rethinking the handicap parking. If
Yeah.
Gilliland, if that was a parking lot where attendees were coming through, we'd get more visibility for the band. I mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I'm just saying there are things we can do.
No, I
And
agree.
again, go back to my question, if that's what we wanna do, maybe that's not even what we wanna do. The other thing is, I think, so we need more beer vendors, particularly, especially if we're gonna
Yeah,
go down the sidewalk. We have to have more beer vendors and maybe even, one or two other kind of adult beverage type vendors. So, I think we need to work on that.
Can I ask a question about the vendors over there towards the pavilion? Because
Yeah.
my experience is more limited in Deutschen Fest. Was there ever vendors across
Yes.
the creek on
Yes.
that side? Because
Yeah.
I remember like the earliest
Well-
memories I have is the little pony rides
I
that
was
were
gonna
over
say,
there on that
it
side, right?
technically,
Yeah, there was-
it
because-
it wasn't vendors technically
It
on that
was-
side, it
well,
was,
Like people that were selling things, right? Like were people selling things, food,
No,
any of that
like
stuff?
all the way
Uh-huh.
just past the gazebo, but we could go all the way to the Vietnam vet thing if we wanted to. But because
Fallen Warrior.
the Fallen War,
Yeah,
Fallen Warrior, sorry.
that's okay.
The first time, like, I've been working Deutschen Fest for 25 years.
Sure.
And I started with Pflugerville Little League. And Pflugerville Little League was always that last vendor next to where the canopy of trees
Right.
hits the sidewalk
Yep,
there. So we were all the way,
And the only reason I
Yeah,
asked that
man.
question is because, like, I know it's come up a couple times, and I wrote it as a note. Is I agree with you, Melissa. I don't think you can have an audience playing that pavilion if you don't have things that are attracting
yeah.
participants over there, right?
But that was,
I agree.
I mean, that was my
Wait,
goal as the
wait.
vendor, was to get things
Absolutely.
to attract people down there. We just didn't do it this year.
so
So-
finish your,
No, so that's my thing. I think we're gonna have at some point we're gonna have to choose, right? Are we gonna have entertainment there,
So-
and
Yeah, what
that's
do we
gonna
wanna do
force
with that?
vendors in that area? That adds challenges, right, logistically and all
right,
that, and
So
whether we can get enough.
pre-COVID, we didn't use the pavilion except for, it was the children's area, and that's where the bouncy house was
Okay,
and all
yeah.
of that. It was
Okay.
pre-COVID. And when COVID hit, there were no kids at Deutschen Fest, basically. And so I was the one that said, so what are you gonna do with that pavilion? And they said, you want it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So, mea culpa. So what it's evolved into, though, it can either be a launch pad for if you play here, in a few more years, you'll make it to main stage, but maybe not. Or if that's what we want to do, or just simply say, this is for, there was a period of time between 2019 and 22 where I couldn't really get kids bands. Now, not kids bands, but performers. Now there's plenty of kids schools here, private schools, public schools, etc. So I could fill that whole pavilion all day long with $100 kids groups. and you would have to entice the parents and somehow, like, let that group come in for free, don't worry about wristbands or whatever. But, because you've got, literally, if you see the pavilion, you see 20 little kids. I mean, if you saw the dancers, I can't remember what time it was, but that entire pavilion was packed. And if there was any incentive for them to come into the paying side and spend money, we gave the dancers, the children, wristbands. But I didn't keep track to see if, were they going in. I don't know if they were or not. I'm sorry, let me segue, because that's a gate, that's a paying gate. That didn't get set up early enough at all. We had people coming through and literally sitting on the bridge saying, are we supposed to pay to get in? And I said, yes, you are, just wait. If you want to sit in the pavilion, you can. Wait. I guess there were just attendees were early.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they're good signage. Again, good communication, good signage, come sit and wait in the pavilion. I'll have a, DJ playing band music or something like that, just kind of a holding tank. But, yeah, there were several people that just kind of wandered that area. But I just really, I didn't feel comfortable, paying these bands $3,000, $4,000, $2,000 and then zero audience.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a performer. Yes, I do like to get paid,
Yeah.
but I also get so much energy back from the audience.
Yeah.
And Alicia Dalton was there,
Yeah.
and she was good, and her parents were very strong, and that they insisted she's going to be on main stage next year, and I said, no, she's not.
Because personally speaking, every time I would go over there to go check on the volunteers and stuff, it's like you would have all this, lively commotion, and then it would just
Dead.
just off the cliff,
Yep.
right?
Dead.
And you had good bands playing out there, you
Yeah.
know, and it just
Yeah,
the only people that were going by there were people that were walking by because they were going into the
Home.
Well,
they're either going home or
But-
coming into
but
the
see, Miriam
yeah.
brought
All
up a
the
good point.
bands-
There was something that stopped, and Bays will have to let us know
Yeah.
what this was. There was a gap, because you and I already knew this, and we needed to have vendors coming down that way, and you had them
Yeah.
all, and then all of a sudden something changed, and you didn't get communication, and it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all those bands had some people watching them, but mostly they probably brought the audience, But,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I felt so bad. I personally,
Is the door
Um,
locked?
I felt so bad about stranding those bands, because, I mean,
I did
it
too.
wasn't my decision, but I was in charge of the vendors, so I take responsibility or whatever. And
So
I
that
paid
begs
like
the
four-
question,
I
how
paid-
much
I wanted to say
responsibility, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I personally paid $400 out of my own pocket, because this is how passionately I care about supporting the musicians. I paid $400 between the bands, the gazebo and the pavilion in tips, because I felt so
Okay.
bad about not supporting them by getting more people down there. So
Well, thank you.
I
know they appreciated
wanna-
that.
I'm fully in support of that, and I don't want to do anything that, I don't know, anyway.
Well, that kind of begs the question, how much responsibility do we have versus how much authority do we have?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we mentioned in some of those meetings earlier, for us this year, with the timetable that we had when we kind of took
Yeah.
everything over, was just
30 days before.
yeah, and it's not like we were trying to figure everything out at the same time. It's not like we just picked up with full background knowledge, right? So that took us
Okay,
time as well.
so to
and then
address
there were,
that, we should have met with at least the two of us. Said,
right.
what
and then,
happened
so
in
we're
years
picking
past,
up,
and
other, so like I said, we were doing our best to pick everything up and make sure we got what we had at the time across
Yeah.
the finish
But-
line as best as we could, and that's
So
really all it came down to.
can you address why, number one, why I wasn't included in the walk around the park marking the spaces, because I was the vendor rep, and why the vendors got rearranged a third time after, like, I took several hours and I don't get paid. I don't work for the city. I'm an unpaid volunteer who every moment I work on this is money that I could be making in my own business because I'm self-employed. So why did the vendors get rearranged? And why do we let vendors refuse to go where we need them to be? Because that can't happen next year.
So to answer your first question, Gabby and I marked the spots. That's just a logistical thing we did. It was never a reason to put anybody out, but Gabby and I have our system. We rocked along and just marked all the spots. That's
But it,
just
I mean,
something
but
we
it
did
didn't
in
work
prep.
because it didn't go with the map that we had.
It was
put a
laid
lot of
out,
thought
yeah,
into.
We laid it out according to the most updated map we had at the time.
Which wasn't the
It was the one that
either-
we sat with to
Yeah.
mark the vendors.
It's the
it
last
wasn't
one that we
because we had
finalized.
more vendors going down the sidewalk and, yeah, that's okay.
Well, I will say, with events, things do change very quickly, and because of certain vendors, we have to adjust. So if anything was out of place, or if anything was moved, it was because of day of logistical issues,
That's right.
where we had to adjust people. And some things are just out of our hand at that point. And so, yes, vendors will be moved. Some
Well, I mean,
people
we
will get moved.
We put a vendor, at least one vendor, and I think this is probably the most serious vendor complaint I got. We put them in a spot that, we probably created some serious liability for them, because there was a stump right at their entrance that they personally had to mark up and put tape around because people kept falling. And then you
Like kept
should have
tripping.
noticed that. I would have noticed that. Had I been included in marking the vendor spots, I would have noticed that. That should have been noticed. We should not have put a vendor like that. That stump should have been in between, maybe, but not in the middle of a vendor's booth.
Yeah, well, I wish you would have told us that too when you found out about it, because we probably could have
But
done
we
something
agree
about
that
Well,
it.
shouldn't
But-
have happened, and
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was
yeah,
hindsight
I agree
this
with
on
you.
our part.
Yeah, but also if we could have found that out, we could have helped to help.
To
I
move
mean,
if
I
there was
just-
open space.
Like next year, I hope, I like handling the vendors. I just, if I do it again next year, I just wanna be more included.
Like I said, and again, we're taking things over, trying to get it across the line best we could. It's hard, and all the event experience we have, also going into an established big time event is also
But I do
big,
too.
got a big
I have
undertaking.
event
Right.
experience.
Yeah, and
as
that's
well.
why we met with you to help get your input on things too. But kind of like we said too, at the end of the day, it is a city-run event. Although obviously we couldn't do it without y'all, and we value y'all's input. But at the end of the day, it all kind of comes down to us. So we were just doing our best, and that's really all it comes down to.
Well,
And
the
that's why-
bottom line
I
is
ask
though,
you-
Miriam, they have things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Yeah.
They know what we have going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So they know about, but we can't
Right.
possibly know.
I understand that, but where it affects the job we've been asked to do, then it's something we need to think about, how can we do better next year?
Yeah.
I mean, all I can
And-
tell you
and-
is, like I said, it matters to us. I can tell you that a lot. Again, maybe our first Deutschen Pfest, or mine, Gabby's second. But this is not just something I do for my job, right? Like I do this for a reason. So I guarantee you, it's not just because. Like I said, we're doing our best
So
that
let
we
me
can,
go-
and to try to make this event, any event that we do, the best we can. So I
So-
just hope you could respect that.
So I do,
Yeah.
but
that's all.
let me go back to the question I posed, because maybe this is the time to talk about it. If it's a city event, what do you see it? What do you want Deutschen Fest to be? Because again, I do think we need, if we're all on the same page, we have the same picture of what we want this festival to be, then that's gonna solve some,
for sure.
some
I
of
agree
the.
with you on that. I don't know if I could tell you right now. I think I'm still, from just my first view of the event, still going through all the debrief process and kind of deciding. And it's not just a me thing, right? So you asked me that question, but I don't want to speak on behalf
I'm
of
just
everybody else
asking.
for us, but the
There's
city,
only
right?
the two of you.
And I don't, like I said, I don't have an answer, like a stone cold answer for you right now, right? I think it's something that I know, at least for my personally, and I think for our team in general, like that's something we'll think about really and have the time to think about between now and when we start planning for next year, right? And so we
Yeah.
can all, and that's kind of what I would ask of y'all too, and this is what I thought when you posed that question earlier, because I did think you're right. Like for any event you do, and this one in particular, like I think it is important to know what our, not necessarily goal is, on hard numbers, but like what is the spirit of the event? What's our kind of style? What's our our
Vision.
theme, what's, you know, like, I think that, kind of like, what is the heart of the event, and what do we want to,
Welcome to Pflugerville.
yeah, right, like, what do we want to
Because
push off
we,
that,
we
right?
struggle as a city to have an identity. That's been going on for years and years, right?
Yeah, right, but, you know,
Because
as
if you're
best
not-
you can, you want to try to have that for any event you do, so I definitely agree that that's something that we should discuss and formulate some kind of general direction to that point, but, I don't think I could sit here and tell you right here now what that is.
I mean, I hope
I like
that we-
your idea about, not charging to get in and become that really cool festival in Pflugerville, but you've got to find a way to make money to pay the bands. So there has to be,
That's the thing.
we've got to figure out, maybe
Yeah.
there's so perhaps during the next few months or whatever, we can do some research, and we may just have to go to some of these festivals. I see that in the
Yeah.
future.
I think it's,
we
yeah.
can
I
write
think
it
a road-
out.
Yeah.
I think a road trip is coming
Yeah,
up.
little
And-
field trip.
Yes.
I want to make sure before I forget, I wrote myself a note, bleachers in front of the gazebo, because I know I was asking you at the last minute, is
There
there any
were
way y'all,
pictures. What?
I had to get them there.
Oh, you
They
got,
had,
oh,
no,
oh.
no, 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 Miriam, hang on. I hate asking people at the last minute, can you go move those, and I did, and I was like, oh man, I don't do this, so, yeah, and you guys rocked.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, notes for next time, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get that taken care of.
Yeah, just,
Well, maybe that could be something that we talk about at the first meeting.
Yeah. I
Like,
think so.
start planning earlier for one thing, but, cause I come from a business background, so what you would probably start with an idea of what you want it to be first, and then is like, how do I get there? How do I make it what I'm picturing? So, I mean, if we maybe even all kind of plan to come to
Yeah.
the first meeting with
For sure,
something
and,
like
and
that,
to Kelly's point too, or anybody's like, if you're looking for family friendly, maybe it is a change in the fee structure or how things are set up to help, facilitate that ease of access, and not only access, but in a logistical sense, but attendance, right? And the barrier to entry for all these events, like that's all things that, and the creativity part of it you mentioned to kind of achieve those different things. Like I totally agree with those directions, but I think, it just takes the time to have those creative light bulbs over the next couple months before we get started on next year, for everybody to write them down when you get those little light bulb moments, or you see something cool when you're out somewhere else. Like that's the important stuff to bring, like you said, to that first kind of meeting next year, so we can kind of have, I think that would probably be a good
did y'all
direction
get
to
any
start.
feedback on the beer stein holding and because that was fun to
That was
watch.
super fun.
That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody loves it. It's always a little bit of a rodeo, which I think is kind of the fun part to it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good time.
Just so I understand, like, kind of scope and, like, roles and responsibilities, because I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, too, planning and all those things. My thought originally was the city kind of places what they want Deutschen Fest to be, and then we kind of implement that. Like, we work within the bounds of what you guys decide.
Yeah.
Are you asking us to be part
I
of
think
that?
for like I get what you're saying. So like
Yeah.
you kind of think like the city, almost like bumpers, for lack of a better term, right? Of kind of what it is. But
Yeah.
no, I would just say as far as like theme, obviously we'll have an input on that too.
Of course.
But obviously y'all are the Deutschen Fest committee for a reason, and to me that a big point of that is steering us in the direction that y'all see, and as kind of the public representatives also for the event, like what you hear out in the community, and like that I think is an important, for me, part of y'all's role is obviously helping us in the planning process, but really helping us make sure we're on the right track too. Like obviously we'll think and kind of come up with our direction, of course, of what we want it.
Yep.
But I think it's important for all of us to kind of have the personal ideas so we can match them all together and hopefully come out with the best bits of all of them. So yes, to answer your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to set that expectation too, because at the same time, I don't want us to leave the meeting with this expectation like, oh, we're brainstorming and all these things, and if that's not something that's going to be considered, I don't, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Like you don't want us to just show up next year with this is the plan and here we go kind of thing.
And if
Yeah.
that's the case, that's fine. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
but no, I mean,
you know.
I think for us, like obviously we do want, like sincerely want y'all's input on thoughts and ideas. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that, as y'all know, like we can't do everything.
Yeah, there's a
obviously-
certain budget.
There's,
all that,
there's
right?
boundaries of all kinds of reasons to play in, but like to Miriam's point, I do think the general theme of what we're going for, and I use family friendly kind of as an example, if you will, but could be anything, right? But I think it is important to have that, like, this is what we want Deutschen Pfest to be as a group, as all of us, and kind of shoot for that.
So, did you, on Sunday, first off, how did that go? I did not go to the event on Sunday, but all of those vendors, nonprofits, used to be part of the
Friday,
big
Saturday,
event,
Sunday,
the big
yeah.
event. And then Sunday, we had bands, more bands. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I mean, I enjoyed that whole 3-day festival because that's when you get people to come in from out of town, stay in the hotels, and your hotel occupancy tax.
I
That was-
I
starts going up.
agree.
And so that speaks to tourism.
Yeah.
Dropping the nonprofits to Sunday are, I don't know if I'm right or wrong in this. Were some of the churches, some of those nonprofits?
Gabby, do you remember? I don't remember.
I don't think there were.
Last year, we
Exactly.
did
I
have
saw
churches.
some.
I don't think
And
there
See,
were
I thought
any-
that was an odd thing to have to ask a church to come out on Sunday and not only do your service on Sunday, which is the preacher's day of
I don't
work,
think
and
there
then
was
come.
any churches that asked to be.
I don't know
Not
if there
this
were any
week,
this
not
year,
this
but
year.
I
Not
remember
this year,
last year, I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 churches.
Well, then that may
went
be
out
why
there.
there weren't this year, because our church said, we just can't, we don't have the staff to do this, all Sunday morning and then come out Sunday afternoon.
But I
So-
agree with you, Melissa. I wish we went back to a 3-day
A 3-day
festival.
That
event.
was,
Friday,
that was
Saturday,
on
Sunday.
my note too.
Yeah.
Like, and I heard
We
it from
can
several people.
Still do
like,
the
nowadays.
run, maybe somewhere else, or I don't know. The lake is far away from the festival, but
And I heard parade.
and I know I
Parade.
heard several
Yeah.
people
Several
wondering,
times.
asking
I
when
did
we're
too.
going to bring the parade back too.
So basically, it goes back to, these are the people that know what the festival used to be.
Yeah.
They're making a comparison.
They're
with-
making a
yeah.
comparison between what it is
I mean, 'cause I do
today
that
and
too.
what it used
Yeah.
to be. And I do it too.
Yeah.
So do we want to give the people because the people who don't know, I mean, I was reading it on Pflugerville Peeps. I mean, the people who don't know that are new to Pflugerville, they thought it was great.
Yeah.
The food was a little expensive and it was a little
Yeah.
hot and dry and, but not, it was the
We
people
can't do
that.
anything about the hot and dry.
Right, exactly. But it was the people that have been to Deutschen Fest in the previous years. They're like, the main stage, like, where's the big band for,
Yeah.
what's the big main,
Yeah.
it was cover bands, which are fun, and I love the cover bands, and I was out there dancing with
I
everybody
think
else.
the bands are good.
They were great.
Yeah. And I've seen the other
But
bands.
to
Yeah.
that point, that's why I brought up Monty Montgomery.
Right.
Because the entire state of Texas, and he's been on, and Caitlin cut me off on that one. So I'm gonna ask again for him next year, because I turned around and hired him. So he's gonna be performing at our church at one of my concerts, and I'm paying him the same fee that we would have paid,
Yeah.
so.
I'd say like if we
It goes back to what
go
we
back to a
want.
3-day festival,
Yeah.
I think that it sounds like a discussion we should have.
Yeah.
We start planning next year. And then we talk about the nonprofits, then we're gonna
And
have to
why were the
address.
nonprofits relegated to Sunday? What was the?
Because
what-
people, that was
Didn't want
widely requested
handouts.
that,
by
the
attendees?
vendors have something to sell. They did not want,
Who was,
Anderson
request-
Windows trying to make appointments or.
who requested that?
Just a lot of people I talk to, me personally, I'll
Okay,
say,
okay, okay.
that's my personal
Okay, I
opinion.
just-
That
yeah.
I talk on, so I posed the question
But
across.
Anderson, that's
lot
not a
of-
nonprofit.
No, it's not
Anderson-
just nonprofits. It wasn't
Solicitors,
just it was
essentially.
anyone that was not a retail vendor with a physical item to
Got
sell.
it. Okay, I see what
They
you're
wanted,
saying.
like you had mentioned, the tangible product, right?
Yes.
They didn't want somebody to say, "Hey, we'll set up your pest control or whatever."
Got
right?
it.
They didn't want vendors like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm all in on that
So
one.
if we go to a 3-day festival, then we need to set some parameters around that. If we let those
I agree.
nonprofits
Like a
or
limit of-
service or we have to talk about how to control that.
I have one last piece of feedback. The city parking, when we set up the cones and all that stuff the week before, and this is coming from my neighbors and stuff. We got mailers saying you can't have your vehicles on the street, take your vehicles off the street, all that stuff, and then patrons were just parking on the street. Like they're just moving cones, and just parking
Yeah.
there.
They move their cars and then there's somebody parks
saw
in front
that
of their
too.
house anyway.
Yeah, so, you know, and don't get me wrong, there was a couple of my neighbors that decided they were going to leave their cars on the street too. So that threw a monkey wrench in it because PD
Well, yeah,
said they
there's-
weren't going to enforce it. If
No,
there
there's
was
no
any,
consequences.
Yeah, well, because it has to be an all or nothing thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Can we give the residents just a piece of paper that
A parking
the
pass?
vendor pass that we like? Can we give the residents something to put in there?
And I think the majority of the neighborhood residents are fine with it. It's just that you ask us to park in our driving our garages, but then the people that are coming to the festival are
The
just
attendees,
disregarding
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
the no parking. I mean, there's like literally no
Well-
parking signs that
Well,
we're
and
putting
that
up.
becomes
temporary
an
signs, you know?
administrative nightmare.
I also don't know if the cones were too far apart or people were moving them.
Yeah, it was just
Moving them.
yeah. I mean, even if they were close together, they were moving them.
Yeah.
So, and I know this is not directly you guys, right? Like this is part of PD and enforcement and stuff like that. But if we're gonna make the city residents move their cars, like we have to enforce
I think that's
the no parking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And every year before that, the 7 years I've been there, it's been fine. It was just for some reason this
Yeah.
year, it just kind of one guy
Yeah.
parked, and then all of a sudden everybody started parking there too.
Well,
So
they
it
said
takes
that
one,
one guy
right?
said
It just takes one.
Yeah.
just tow
for
it,
sure.
is what he said when they asked him to move it.
Yeah.
He's like, just tow it.
No, yeah, he said
I
he's
mean,
got his
it's
lawyer
just
on
a real-
retainer, and if you want to tow him. But he
yeah,
was
that was the vendor.
he was-
people parked.
he wasn't even
wanting
supposed to be
park in
driving.
The vendor
He
parking
literally
lot.
turned the wrong direction.
No.
He thought the festival was the other way, and then his wife was like,
Okay,
"The
so
car's still there. Let's go."
one out of 5,700 people.
yeah.
There's always
No,
one in the bunch.
no.
Well, that's the
because
guy
that
that
one
scared
guy-
the guy at the vendor lot.
What? Yeah, because one time when I was
Scared
Well,
helping.
because he felt like he couldn't tell him you can't park
Yeah,
there.
I was helping some vendors with their stuff, and that guy that was there at the time, I think he was a little intimidated, and I think he had to deal with several people who were kind of being a little aggressive with him. So
I'm telling you, when you have the paychecks to the bands, they just don't act that way. That's the benefit.
yeah,
We've talked about this so many times before that we're not ever going to be able to please everybody. We know that.
no,
But I think I'd like to do, and I'm thinking Pflugerville Arts Council, because that's where my brain is all the time, is that I would like to, and that's just something that I'll work on, is people come to Deutschen Pfest, yes, there's incredible vendors, incredible bands, but they have this really cool display, and that's what it's known for. And so I've already got a couple of artists that have reached out to me, and I went, wait, you do what? That's so cool. And so it may cost, there may be some cost involved, but just something to, maybe that's the only reason you came there, but while you were there, did you see those vendors, that type of thing? Because I may be wrong, I don't think most attendees come for the vendors, because those vendors are everywhere already.
I think they come
Yes
for
or
the
no?
festival in general,
The
and
whole-
then
the
starting
event, yeah.
about 4 or 5 o'clock, they come for the bands.
Bingo.
And that's kind of what I talk about when
Yeah.
I talk about like what do we want Deutschen Fest? What's like our goal? Not theme, but you know what I mean. Like that's kind of the same thing I'm talking about. Like what do we want to see? What do we want to shoot for? Type of thing. Like that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
when people go and then they're spreading the word to their friends. What are the first 3 things they're telling them?
Right.
Like what are those type of things that we're trying to be?
Right.
You know, you're right. Like everyone has vendors, everyone has food, everyone has music of some degree or
Right.
style, right? So like, what are the things that we can be creative and do that's what spreads the word. That's what helps drive attendance and
Well, we're not
years
going to
and
solve
kinda
that
get
here
going.
tonight.
So, yeah.
It's,
So
But, I mean,
it's not. It's
hopefully-
like,
we
it's like
have a-
maybe an impossible task, but it's something. to shoot
No.
for.
that could go the other way too, like the kid pretzel eating contest for 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
for sure. And there's,
No,
there's
and I'm
things you
saying,
can
like,
change.
how many, I mean, the mothers and the grandmothers, you should have seen us. We were panicking, like, you've got children eating how many pretzels? And have
Hey,
you seen my kid choke on
I am-
bread before?
I was amazed that that 8-year-old beat that 14-year-old.
That
She
8-year-old
ate
man
him, under the table. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Did
that
the vendor
was
say
a-
they made a ton of money, or I kept
don't know,
hearing
that
from
just-
Rotary
that just
and all those
screamed
guys that that was their
liability
best
to
weekend
me.
ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, But that's because we need more beer vendors, so that's kind of a
Let's have
monopoly
let's
on
have
the
a
beer.
juice box drinking contest for the kids. How many juice boxes
I'll
can
sign
you?
my kids up today.
I mean,
No.
the vendors
How many
are
juice
pretty
boxes
happy,
can you
but,
drink
they
in
can run
10
circles.
minutes?
Honestly,
You know,
honestly, I do think like a lot of those
Like
fun
run
events,
circles.
like the pretzel eating contest,
Yeah.
like the beer
it's not
stein,
our problem.
like those
Or
are.
the grandparents.
If we can build off of those,
Yeah, maybe
they don't
it's
cost.
root beer.
They don't
Maybe it's
cost
like root
next
beer
to
drinking
nothing,
for the
right?
kids or something instead
Yeah,
of pretzels,
yeah.
you know, something.
I
We
would
did talk
remember
about
we
the
did.
possibility of keg
Contest.
races.
Yeah.
That would be cute.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Adult
Physical
keg
toss.
races.
Yeah.
They
More
can-
like Celtic
yeah.
game style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Do the
Cake
juice
toss.
box and then make them run keg races.
Yeah, kick toss. You have the
So
almost
what
like a hydro at
happened
the
with,
bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Strict on it, dude.
you know, Miriam
We
and I
used to have
remember.
the car used to beat up. Remember? Way back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I
The
don't
what?
remember that.
I
The-
had numerous
car.
people ask for the
Numerous
car.
people asked me
Yeah.
about
The car
the
smash.
wrecked car.
You
That,
hit
yeah,
the
car
car.
smash.
We had
It
this
did-
wreck-
Conley High School.
That was,
It was
you
I
paid
used to
$5.
work-
It was a big
Which I
red
love
the
it.
car,
Conley High
and you
School
could come
project
hit it
graduation fundraiser.
with a big
Tons of people
sledgehammer.
were there.
Yeah,
They
I've done
asked
it
me.
before, different things. Yeah, it's fun.
Connolly High School.
Oh,
Miriam.
yeah.
Probably a
Yeah.
liability issue, but yeah.
It was
Yeah,
very
yeah,
well
maybe these
liked.
days.
Well, and that's another thing
Fun
too,
moments.
is bringing in the school district into this, going out to the school district, which I can do that, you know, through my connections, go out and say, how would you like to be represented PISD? Would your school specifically have something cool that you would like to be represented?
Smash the
Don't charge them to show up, because they are going to bring a pocket load of people with them.
But if you're doing like high school, what are we gonna do with those high school kids when they get there? Because we still don't have really anything for
We
older
need that. We
kids.
need more
So,
carnival
the
games.
age-
Like the
yeah.
carnival, there
For-
used
for
to
the-
be
for the
more
35-year-old
big kid
guy.
carnival games.
That was-
Yeah,
Or carnival.
That was
rides.
another piece
Right.
too.
that
Like,
age group.
we
the
have a lot of
20s.
younger kid stuff, but that like
Still.
10 to
Kinda
18-year-old.
tween to teen
Yep.
Yeah.
age.
Yeah,
kinda
tween,
teen-
tween to teen.
tween
yeah.
to teen, yeah, like
Yeah.
there was like we just
Nothing.
don't have that because the carnival used to be that.
Right.
The actual like bigger rides used to be that for those kids.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Another thing that might be interesting, and I think I know who could pull this off, is, okay, so here's a stage. Either side of the stage, probably right stage right would be best, is to have a huge screen, and you've got on that screen everybody that's, like what do they do at the
yeah.
baseball games? The kids
Jumbotron.
can- The Jumbotron, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know how much
Or
those things
drone
cost,
or
but
something going around.
something like
Taking
that,
pictures.
you know, just that it's going on, so you can see,
that's cool.
you know, you obviously you got a videographer, a cameraman walking around, you know, and yes, I do know one of those, and
Well, wasn't somebody doing interviews? Oh, that's
this
Yeah.
this year,
somebody
this
There
year
was
or
a videographer,
Yeah, somebody was out doing interviews and
yeah.
yeah,
I didn't know
that's
that.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah, and get them on the screen.
that'd be something cool.
Don't talk to the Tollisons. They're gonna say, I didn't like anything. Don't talk to them. You got to name who you're gonna talk to. So yeah, we can come up with some cool and
So-
interesting.
Because we keep having ideas like, oh, let's not charge them. So we still do have to make money. So
Yeah.
that one
But
thing
do
that
we
we could
have to make money?
as-
Do we have to
I
make money?
think
We have to pay
so.
the bands.
I
We
think,
gotta pay the bills.
I mean,
We
why
can't-
can't this
pay.
be a money raiser? Why can't they eventually not only just make enough money to pay the bands, but why can't we eventually even
Well,
be
either
a way like
go
Pflugerville's getting really expensive to live in, okay? So why
Right.
can't this eventually
pay a
be
lot
way
of
that we
taxes
can
to
make
live
money?
here. Like we're
But here's the thing. So when we talk
Okay,
about
wait. I'm confused about what idea you're talking
no,
about. You're saying
well, yeah, because it got
jumbled
anyway.
up.
What I was saying, like for the non-retail people,
the Sunday.
make them be a sponsor. Let them be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but they have to be a sponsor and make it something that's worth it. If you want to come and solicit everybody at the festival, you
You
know,
gotta pay
it's
for it.
$1,000.
I mean, that's what the sponsorship packages kind of are. So
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's already out there, right?
I mean,
Yeah, it's already an option.
open up
But I mean,
the
open it up.
non-retail vendor, and that's what it says. Like,
well, that's
because a
what
lot of
some
them
our
applied,
sponsors
so
were.
they find
Exactly.
out what the
So-
price is here. Anyway,
No,
Yeah, 'cause
that's
none of our
just another way
sponsors
to
had,
make
I
money.
don't think an actual like good to sell, so they were there just
Yeah.
as their sponsorship.
I don't know. That's awfully hard discrimination. I don't know. I see some issues with that,
Well,
especially with churches, with religious, spiritual facilities.
yeah, but I mean,
let me
force
let me
everybody
finish
to.
my sentence.
There's an option.
In order to preach, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's still a choice, right? like nobody's forcing you to come
But
to be at
it's
the
not-
festival,
right,
right?
right.
It's- My point is only about, we have to come up with different ways to make money.
Revenue.
Yeah.
And if it's not
Oh,
something the
if we
festival
don't have-
goers want
yeah.
to see, do they want those kind of vendors? Like, what?
Like
There's no
garage
point in
doors,
letting them
windows,
in
and-
for free, just because they're a nonprofit, if it's not adding to the enjoyment of the attendees of the festival.
Well, and the bottom line is, part of the reason I didn't have Arts Council booth there, I don't have any swag. I have nothing to hand out, you know? So if they
Yeah.
don't have any swag, you know, because you always go by, I mean, I've got so much stuff at home from working for the chamber, because people would drop off, all the companies would drop off all their swag.
Yeah.
And that, a lot of those things I would use over and over again. So I don't know if you can incorporate that into, okay, this particular vendor actually sells product, this vendor doesn't sell product, however, they have this, and it's, you know, I don't know. Like, you make that a
I mean,
requirement,
just
you've got to
something
have some
talk
type of
about.
swag,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so you're going to take what we're giving you and you're gonna go to the city council, correct? And talk to them about this, or is?
It all goes, if I'm correct on this, it all goes in like our final report to
City
to
manager,
the briefing to the city leadership, city
Yeah.
council.
yeah.
Do we get a copy of that? Or do we have to show up at the city council
I
meeting?
kinda
You
like
can watch it
to- I'd like
online,
to-
you can watch it online.
I'd like to
Yeah.
go, I'd
Yeah.
like to.
I mean, I try to go, but it's usually a
It
bad
always
night for
depends
me.
on who's speaking, because if you get some speakers from some group and they've got 50 of their participants, it gets packed, so that's why I watch it
Yeah, I
online.
remember some,
Yeah,
school
some
board
rowdy-
too,
some rowdy
depending on the
people.
topic. it could be
Yeah.
good.
So it kind of goes back to what is expected. I mean, what is the
What is
city
this
want?
festival? Yeah.
I mean, do you want to make money? Is it going to be
See,
a
I think
moneymaker, or is it just a festival that the city puts on
Yeah.
for the enjoyment of the citizens
I
of
think that's
Pflugerville?
gonna be an important, like, maybe very first topic.
First
Yeah.
question:
for
What
next-
is the
next
what is the
year.
goal? Because obviously, we can make some money. I don't know if it covered all the expenses because there were added expenses that are not
Yeah.
in the recap. So, and I get the impression that last year it didn't make enough. It didn't make money enough to pay back what was spent. It didn't cover the
Yeah, I'm
expenses.
not sure about last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is where I am. If it's just for something for these citizens of Pflugerville to enjoy, because let's be honest, we pay a lot of taxes to live here.
Yeah.
And there aren't a whole lot of events that are put on by the
Yeah.
city of Pflugerville.
Cause we'll make different decisions depending on what
Based
we
on
want it
that,
to be.
yeah, then the size that it is right now and maybe just growing it a little bit more makes sense. That's fine. But if we want it to be a moneymaker, then we're gonna have to put some more into it because
And make it bigger.
and make it
Have you-
bigger.
But I think this debrief report is more about feedback from this
Yeah.
Deutschen Pfest,
These
and
are all
then that's
things
all.
I mean, I think those ideas just came out of this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I just want to make
that's
sure
not
that the expectation that what the report's going to be is feedback on
Yes,
this
it's literally
past Deutschen
just
Fest,
this
right?
year, not, it's- yeah. 'cause
Yeah, but
it's-
some of
it's-
it's gonna give us a start for our first agenda,
Well, and-
right, for next
Yeah,
year,
and
right?
ultimately, somebody's making a budget for this, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's making the
yeah.
decisions in the city for what we're gonna have to spend, so we need the vision of
Yeah,
what,
and
where
like I
we're
said,
going
that's
with that.
that stuff we'll talk about internally between now and when we get going next year. So, and we'll definitely tell you all that and kind of what our plan is going into next year.
What was the
Okay.
final number expenditure on bands? Cause I've got one number around 28,000. Does that sound about right?
30th.
Sounds. I don't remember. I've slept since the
I
last
know
couple days since I looked at it, but
I know.
it
yeah,
sounds about ballpark.
I didn't bring my
yes.
my correct spreadsheets. I know the main stage was 21.7, and I just didn't. I'm just eyeballing that. Add another. Well, my budget was $4,000, so
Yeah,
that's
that
about.
sounds.
And
right
then
in
the
ballpark.
sound guys on top of
The
that,
sound guy. Yep, I forgot about him. He's
that came out of the
how much was
entertainment
Richard?
budget.
About 3,500.
Hmm,
sound
I don't
guys,
remember
that
either
much?
because how he has like a year contract basically, so
Okay.
it's not per.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Per event. Got it.
Oh, can I say something fun
Yeah.
about that?
Please
I think I told you already.
Please
But so the week after Deutsche Pfest was Meeting of the Minds, and that's when the Trop Rock Music Awards are.
Oh yeah.
And so Jonas
Jonas
Lawrence,
Lawrence.
who was one of the bands we had playing at the Pavilion, They won Song of the Year, Video of the Year, and Duo Trio of the
Oh,
Year
that's
this
awesome.
year at the Trop Rock Music
They're
Awards.
awesome.
Okay, so
That's
that
really
brings
cool.
up another
What rock?
thought too.
Trop Rock.
Trop rock?
So you mentioned that there was a videographer there,
Yes.
and what was his or her, what was their mission?
We do basically filming of all events and then do basically like small recap video, pretty much like the day after. So that's already on YouTube and all that stuff.
Okay.
And we also had, for the interviews, he was doing a series called That's My Pflugerville,
Yeah.
which is stuff you've seen.
I know, people are asking me to do that, and I'm going, I don't want to do it. So, here's a thought, is that we offer the bands a very professional video of their performance and pull it off the amount that we pay them.
Yeah, like additional compensation kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a
Like in lieu of or in kind, like in kind
Yeah, because if you
compensation.
saw the videos that I'm taking with my phone, don't let her do it again. They're so bad. And, then my phone says, don't have enough room on your, so I don't have anybody that's got, because some of those bands, I would have loved to have used it for promotional materials next time around, et cetera, but, they're either gonna have to pay their own group to do it, but it's just something to say, hey, we'll create a video for you, $2,000, knock it off the price that we're gonna pay you.
Yeah, thought for next year for sure.
Okay.
All right, I think that covers most areas, but obviously if we
And
definitely
then
have any other, anything else, that's what we're here for.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion,
Yeah.
do I have a move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and second to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned
Deutschen Pfest
at 7:36
2023.
PM.